are on. Hello, everybody. Welcome to day 3. Welcome to day 3 of Halo Fest and Xbox Talks 10 years of Halo. Have you guys been having fun? Yeah! Did any of you see the Halo 4 panel? Yeah! Unfortunately, we won't be taking questions about Halo 4, but we are here to talk about, I was calling it when I was on Larry's podcast, Old Fogies Talk About Old Fogey Things.
Yeah.
But it's just Xbox Live talks about 10 years of Halo, Xbox. So, let me introduce the panel. First, a man who needs no introduction, Larry Herb, AKA Major Nelson.
Thank you.
To his right, we have Jerry Hook, who is an Xbox Live founding member. To his right, we have Doug Hebenthal, who is Xbox founder, one of the first 7. Next to him is E, who is Director of Architecture for Operations. And I believe you know Steptoe, who is Director of Enforcement. He is the mighty band Hammer. So, where to begin? Anytime we talk about history, you always want to start at the beginning. So, in the beginning, there were tech demos. There were butterflies. Does anybody remember the butterflies? There were mousetraps that blew everybody's mind. Do you remember these guys? Rex and Raven? Yeah. And then there were games. I don't know if anybody's ever seen that before, but that's the night Xbox launched. It was our friend, I think, Doug, visiting our pals Nintendo down the street.
There may have been a little too much drinking involved.
So
the sign did survive, just
now,
to be clear.
The question is, did you know I had that photo?
Well, I figured someone had it.
Who was driving the car?
I'm sorry, I can neither confirm nor deny that I knew anything about the car.
I think it was remote control. Yeah. It was Guilty Spark.
Guilty Spark did it. So, Steptoe is well known for having opinions. Unfortunately, he's been saying them so much that he went and lost his voice. So...
How did you lose your voice, Steptoe? Oh, come on, tell the story.
He's got
come
props.
On. He's got to tell the story.
So, Steptoe, real quick, what were your opinions about the shooter on the console?
But you weren't alone, just so you know.
I really didn't think it was going to succeed.
Oh, he's trying to talk. That's so cute. He has a blog that I think he'll probably link to at some point after this. Can you tweet out follow him at Steptoe, and he'll link out his horribly, horribly wrong blog about how bad it was going to be. But Doug, also, in addition to founding Xbox, you got to do all sorts of fun things like kick off the certification program.
That is true. I started the certification program for Xbox. So it had a sort of a unique opportunity in that particular case, which was I was one of the very first people to get to see Halo outside of the Bungie core group of developers. It was pretty interesting as someone didn't say on the panel. There was a lot of concern that this was going to work, right? No one had done a shooter on a console before. A controller with 2 sticks versus a mouse and keyboard was pretty ridiculous. And when we first showed it at E3, there's a lot of faulty memories at this point. But let's say it didn't go well. People didn't think it was going to be much of anything. But when it first came into certification and we actually started playing it, it was quite clear that there was something magical here that no one really expected.
Did they sail through CERT?
Well, let's say no one sailed through CERT in those days. In the early days of Xbox, we took our responsibility of ensuring overall high-quality games on the platform very seriously, and there were a lot more certification fails than passes, and that included Halo.
I think it was something like 8-1 at the first wave or something. 8 submissions to 1 pass early on.
Yeah, that's probably not far off, actually.
So when did the rest of you get to see Halo 1?
Can we just go down the line?
Yeah.
Jerry and I were just before we get started. Jerry and I were talking. I don't know if the audience has noticed
Are
this.
you noticing? You gotta pay attention here.
It's very subtle, but the hairline starts receding, starts here and goes down.
You notice that? Yeah.
Anyway.
And you'll also know no
I
relation
think it
to
actually
age.
starts here.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry. Your question was when did I actually had not joined the Xbox Live team at that point for Live, so I was enjoying it much like everybody else out in the audience was at home. My wife had actually bought me an Xbox and came home with a copy of Halo. I'm like, oh, I heard about this. This is kind of supposed to be cool, and that was pretty much it for the end. It was the end of my life for the next 2 or 3 days.
So for me, I joined the Xbox team for the first part of Live. There was just a handful of Live members. And my very first game that they sat me down in front of was a pre-build of Halo, because we're in final stages before launch of Xbox One in the summertime. And I just remember taking a look at it really quickly in the office, and then I had to do some testing to come home with. Lots of work at home playing Halo, first time through before anybody else got to see it, obviously before launch. It was the most amazing experience to bring that home. Even my wife, who wasn't into video games at that time, just enjoying it. Fantastic story, incredible graphics. Obviously in those time frame. So it was fantastic to see for the first time.
I joined Xbox in April of 2001. It wasn't long after that I got to play Halo for the first time. In the early days, probably as we were leading up to launch, starting like summer of 2001, we were bringing games home basically every day to test and try to get as many people as possible playing all of these games and finding out what worked and what didn't. I remember in August, really close, everything's almost done, the consoles are on their way over, Halo's just about finished, so I planned a weekend with a coworker. And Friday night, we took a dev kit home with an almost final copy of Halo, and we were going to co-op the game the whole way through together. It was going to be a great weekend. We got takeout. We started about 8 p.m. on a Friday night, and about 3 o'clock in the morning Saturday, we got into the library, and we cleared out all the flood, and nobody would come to lead us out of the library. There was a game-breaking bug. So after 7 hours of co-op, we were stuck and had to stop and went to work on Monday and reported it. Oh, yeah, sorry about that.
Take the new build.
Yes. So it was amazing, though. Like other people have said, we knew right away there was something special. We actually had spare closets at the time at work because the Xbox team hadn't exploded yet. We had TVs set up in the closets with cardboard between them for system link play at breaks. So it was pretty obvious that it was going to be a big deal.
I was working on other launch games at the time, but every other game went down. Every other game team took a productivity hit from 5 p.m. till 11 that night or midnight. Everybody playing Halo, theoretically testing it, but really, really, really just playing it. So that was awesome. So speaking of System Link, not all of us were playing on online before 2002. In fact, very few of us were. Did any of you, you're going to date yourself, have any of you ever played a game on X-Band? There were only 7,000 subscribers for real. Mortal Kombat, right? Yeah, that was pretty much it. We played that at the office too, and but again, that was 7,000 subscribers. So talk about before Live launched. What was it like to play an online game?
So from my perspective, I believe everyone will remember Battle.net back in the late 90s. And the Diablo days, and how hard it was to get anything for if you were playing, Warcraft 2 or even the early days of StarCraft. Connecting to somebody else was a pain. If they had bad NAT problems, they had all these issues trying to get connected. And then once you got it connected, it was like, okay, don't touch anything, and we're going to have a marathon session. So those were like the early days of connectivity. And anyone remember Dreamcast and their online attempts?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So they really led the way on what not to do for game setup, and we learned a lot from that.
Certification is a good thing.
Yes.
It was really brutally hard to play multiplayer back in the day. It was, not only did you have to go buy the modem add-on for the Dreamcast or whatever console you were playing with, but the services we take for granted today, like your identity, your gamer tag, matchmaking, being able to connect to people. Back then, being able to connect something in your house to something in someone else's house was unheard of. It wasn't done. And that meant that it was almost impossible, no matter how hard you tried, to play a console game online. You had to be really dedicated.
I actually remember I used to use, was it XP Connect? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
You know, I used to bring my neighbor over, and because you'd take forever to search for a game. I don't know if you remember this. But while we were searching for a game, I happened to have my very large laptop open at that point. I think it was a Pentium. Anyway, and that's when we first discovered Red versus Blue. While we were matchmaking over XP Connect, I'm like, hey, look at this. And so that's what kind of kept us, I'm sure, probably like other people, kept us amused while we were waiting to finally match up. But the only way you could play was if you had somebody else in the room, because as E pointed out, communication and voice communication like that just didn't exist. So the best way was right next door.
Anyone remember a game called Revolt? It was a racing game. It was like RC cars, but you were racing in the real world. So like tables and chairs and basketballs were huge, right? And you were this little RC car that you were driving. It only worked on the PC. This other Xbox founder named Jay would call me on the phone and start talking trash to me on the phone because I wasn't online to play against him on Revolt. And so I'd get on a PC and we'd start playing Revolt back and forth, and he'd be trash talking me on the telephone. So I'd be on the phone, he'd be on the phone, you know, doing this, right, trying to play Revolt. And truthfully, that's where the whole notion of, oh crap, we have to have voice in live came from. Because we would literally, and we did this all the time. Like he would call me, he'd start trash talking at me, then I'd have to like get online, which was a pain, on the PC, and we'd start playing Revolt. And it turns out, and this is kind of a little known fact about Xbox Live, the very first sample code we provided to developers was Revolt. We actually licensed that code from the developer that created it originally, and then we tweaked it to work on Xbox Live, and it was the first game to ever work on the live infrastructure, and it was the first game we ever sent to developers to actually learn how to develop for live and have voice integration and all of the multiplayer stuff.
So I think what you just said, Steptoe, Doug just said, smack talk will get you everywhere in life. So what was the initial feature set of Live before it launched?
So pretty much, actually, you've already heard a bunch of it from different panelists. Single ID, first credit card access. If you remember, that was the time you could actually put in your credit card, purchase your subscription, all of the account infrastructure for that.
I think it was with military level encryption. Wasn't that what marketing said?
Yeah. I believe that was the tagline. Right? Yeah. The military was offended.
I thought it was jump in, but no, it was good to play together.
Yeah, and that's what, you know, you had your first friends list. You had a combined friends list.
But what happened when you first signed up? What did it tell you?
That you had no friends.
You have no friends.
You have no friends.
Right.
We actually kept that for 360. If you remember, we've changed it since then. But yeah, even
my
in
initial
360,
gamer tag. My initial gamer tag.
All-time
was
favorite
Yeah.
Xbox error. You have no friends.
Yeah. And then we did joint match across for your titles itself and Quas. Most of you guys don't know about Quas, but it's a lot of the quality service. So when you talk about in the late 90s, the challenges most people had connecting, it was because the network stack wasn't basically intelligent enough to be able to traverse NATs and traverse all the challenges that you had in any common home setting, let alone different networks. And then you had voice, and the thing that, if you guys don't remember, do you guys remember back in the days when people used voice modulation to sound like a robot?
That was
Yeah.
That was the best feature we didn't bring to
Yeah.
360.
Everybody hated it. Yeah. I believe if you ever got in a match with somebody in voice modulation, you'd hear everyone scream, "Turn that off! Get it off! It's horrible!"
Darkmaster liked it.
Yes.
Ban him!
Yes, get rid of them. And then leaderboards. And something no one has ever seen outside of the team when I was doing a lot of the original commerce work, this is an original Visa for Xbox Live. And what you'll see on it, it's just like any other standard Visa, is you'll see your name plus your gamer tag. So my gamer tag right there is Tick. You see that. You'd use it just like anything else. We had a lot of different...
Somebody wants to take a picture.
What? Oh, okay. Yeah. What are you holding it for? You didn't do this. You weren't even around.
Hover hand. Give it some hover hand.
So the funny thing was we were looking for a lot of different commerce pieces besides, because we wanted people incentivized. We had a lot of challenges with people putting in credit cards, which is why we moved to stored value in 360. And the problem with that was how do you provide incentives? And so this was one of our first, could we have a Visa that provides rewards? Of course, everybody now probably has rewards on everything, but back in that time frame, there wasn't a lot of programs like that. And so then leaderboards for making sure that you were challenging your friends was part of the original stack as well.
And there were some tricky hardware decisions, Doug, that maybe you can talk about that allowed some of that to happen.
Yeah, dial-up Doug. So it was, if you think back to the time frame of Xbox original launch, we started working on the project in '99. Broadband at that time frame was effectively non-existent to the home. In early 2000, we had to make a trade-off decision between narrowband modem dial-up, which is what Dreamcast had done, and broadband. We knew broadband wouldn't be to the home. We knew Xbox Live wasn't for another year at least. After the time, marketing had all kinds of studies and research and plans that said that we were crazy to do anything other than narrowband. There'd be no real gaming option. But there was a small core of people, led primarily by Jay, another guy named Cameron Ferroni, which some of you may know or may not, who's one of the founders also of Xbox, who basically said we have to do broadband. The future of gaming is broadband. The only way this is ever going to work is going to be broadband. And literally, that was a 3-month argument. And I'm not actually exaggerating. It took us 3 months to kind of work through.
But didn't the argument continue all the way through to live launch? Because I still remember no, broadband's never going to make it. Never going to be big. Broadband pretty big out there for you guys? Yeah.
I mean, I have to say one thing. That's pretty amazing because you put it in the box, and it sat there for a year, essentially dormant. I mean, certainly we talked about these other ways of connecting, but it sat there for an entire year before it lit up. I mean, how many of us today would buy a console or something on good faith with a feature that was there saying, we'll light it up later, don't worry about it. I mean, that's pardon me? Okay, 3DS, touche.
One of the biggest things that came out of that decision, too, was one of the early decisions that was already made when I got there was voice was going to be everywhere. You would have to have voice in your game. That couldn't have happened without broadband. If there hadn't been an Ethernet port in the back of the Xbox, you wouldn't have been able to talk to your buddies when you were playing Halo 2 over live with them. And we all take that for granted now, I think. But back then, you didn't get to talk to people you were gaming with. Like Doug said, you had your phone, you stayed at work late at night, so you could use the speakerphone in your office when you were gaming. And that decision trickled down into so many other things like voice.
It also trickled down into cameras, and my very favorite live metric, which is TTP. Who wants to talk about that?
Next question. Let's just say TTP made Uno the all-time favorite live game ever.
Horrible.
It's on Wikipedia if you really want to know what Allison's talking about.
TTP.
Are you really not going to answer that?
I'm not going to answer it. I'm going to choose to plead the fifth and suggest that I will not answer that question.
No one should answer that question. No one.
If you see Frankie in the audience, find him and ask him what TTP means. He will tell you.
Oh, okay. So in the first wave of launch titles, what was the biggest hit? Do you remember what?
Mech Assault.
Yeah.
Mech Assault, the biggest of the original live launch titles, though, the one that the most customers played was Ghost Recon.
Yeah, Ghost Recon. Oh, yeah.
Everyone was playing Ghost Recon. It was the one game that had 16-player multiplayer in 2002.
That's right.
And then it kind of went game to game, but back then there were so you didn't get the waves of games we get today, where you've got in a couple of months lots of great titles. It was a game like Ghost would ship, and 6 months later you'd get a Mech Assault, and 6 months later you'd get something else.
But it was also like today we take for granted that the dashboard gives you messaging, gives you seeding that people have to create top spin for titles. Like we didn't have that either, right? And so you created these islands. If you bought Ghost Recon, you'd have to go to all these different ways to find out about the different titles. Compared to today, almost everybody has cross chat, at least with their communities. That
wasn't it Ghost Recon where you had to go into the game? Wasn't that you had to check your voice messages? Or there was one game you had to go into to check your voice messages.
Well, in 2002, we didn't have voice messaging.
Right.
That
But I'm
came
saying later on, right?
Yeah, and it was actually
clips.
we had game-specific voice messages. We also had game-specific clans that you could join. And actually, our top title in 2004, until Halo 2 came out, Rainbow Six 3 Black Arrow had those features built in. So we were in Rainbow Six 3 Black Arrow clans playing up until Halo 2 came out, and then we had different clans to join.
Right. But that's because it was built in the service at that point.
How many people were playing that at that time?
So this is going to sound really tiny, but at the time it was huge. Right before Halo 2 launched on Live, the all-time high for users playing Xbox Live at a single time was 43,600 people across the world.
43,000.
So let's be clear. There's twice as many people here at PAX alone this weekend.
Yes.
Yeah, just about.
Just to put it in scope.
Yeah.
And Halo 2...
Broadband is going to be big someday.
That's right.
Yes. Yep. And then everything changed.
So let's talk about that change. You were one of the people responsible for speccing how Live would
Yes.
deal with changes.
So I was running the operations team, and we were trying to figure out, number one, we didn't know how successful Halo 2 was going to be. We didn't know what to expect. We had no history of games like that where we knew everyone was dying for this game. So we had no way to project, it's going to be this many people. So we looked at the service and we went, okay, this will be bigger than anything we've ever done. We're going to have to spend some money, buy more servers, more disk drives, more networking equipment, all this stuff. And we spent a couple of months trying to figure out what to buy.
Option
But
one?
we also, on top of all the hardware stuff, it was also Halo 2 was the first time Bungie and Platform really worked together to create a feature set for the next Live release. And that was the Tsunami release that we created that for.
Yep. So we actually had to essentially buy servers for Halo 2 just to make sure the service wouldn't fall down when Halo 2 came out. And I went digging, and I found my old emails. These were the proposals I put together to Ben Kilgore, who was the general manager of Xbox Live, and Pete Parsons, who was running Bungie back then. And we literally sat down. I was sitting on the floor of Ben's office, walking through these three proposals, and they're kind of laughable now. But the first proposal was, well, what if we have 50,000 people playing Halo 2 at once? That's more than have ever used the service, playing a variety of different games. So that would be huge. And back then, $102,000 was a gigantic portion of our budget. We would spend not a whole lot more than that in an entire year on servers and network gear back then. So this was the proposal, and this was kind of the low proposal.
This is actually the very first time you've ever shared this publicly.
Yes.
This is unbelievable. I've never seen this.
So the other thing, you're underplaying it a little bit. So still at this point in time, Live, around Microsoft in general, Xbox Live, was still vaporware. No one had bought out on it. Like, I was constantly fighting with different groups to try to get resources and focus for not only what we were doing in platform, but what was coming next. The budgets we were using, we were constantly in fights because these guys, every time we go to the mat to spend money, it was, but you guys are Live. Like, how many users do you have? Like, really? We're going to spend money on that?
Yeah.
Well, and the truth of the matter is, if Halo 2 would have come out with Xbox Live launch, like the tale of history would have been very different.
Yeah.
Right? Like having that year of Live out there for us to learn how to build and scale the service before this mega game hit, right, was really important. Right?
So this was the medium proposal, and this was the one I was actually trying to get approved. because I thought $286,000, more than $250,000. If I can get this, that'd be amazing. And then I put together a high proposal, which I thought was just silly, because this was 125,000 concurrent users. This was, what if 250,000 people in the world want to play Halo 2 at once? What would that mean? And this was the result, and it was $639,000 roughly. We actually back then couldn't accurately cost that much stuff because all the things that would have to go with it, we weren't sophisticated enough to throw that together quickly in a proposal. So we sat on the floor of the office and talked this out, and we actually...
We were too poor to have furniture back then.
Well, we were spending it all on hardware.
We actually spent a couple hours talking about this, and I was up on the whiteboard answering Pete's questions. And Pete finally said, you know what, let's do it. We'll find the money. It's, Halo's our thing. This is going to be really big. And we all thought it was crazy. We're preparing for 250,000 Halo users. We've never seen more than 43,600 people. And then November came, and we turned it on.
You guys really have to really understand. Up to this point, we had barely hit that 50,000 mark. Yeah. And we're trying to sell, oh no, this one title is going to do 10 times that amount.
Yeah.
I mean, it was insane for people to listen to us.
Well, and to put it in context at sort of the more senior leadership level, we weren't a game business.
Yeah.
Right? Truthfully, in this time frame, we were a PC hardware business.
Hi, everyone.
See this? Dude, this is what we deal with.
Ouch.
Really? Well, at least it didn't blue screen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But the leadership were, we were called the Entertainment and Devices Division. We had PCs and PC keyboards and mice, and Mac Office was part of our division. Totally true. So this notion that we were going to spend this kind of money to bring up a data center so people could play games was not, let's say, well considered a business, right? Or a business that we would ever get there. So, wow.
Sorry, there's a brute
There's a brute in the back of the room. Be careful.
There's a brute back there.
So finish the story. Where did we end up? How many people? You're leaving us hanging.
Yeah,
So-
thanks, Larry.
Halo 2 launch was midnight Eastern time, 9 p.m. Pacific. So I was sitting in an office at Xbox HQ in Redmond. I didn't get to go to the launch party down in Bellevue and Redmond. And I was watching the graphs of how many people were logged in and playing, and I was sending out emails every 15 minutes to Doug and Jay and a whole bunch of other people. And this was where we first saw how quickly people could get from a midnight release party at a store back home, take the shrink wrap off, get the game in. It was 20 minutes or so back then. It's gotten shorter now. And all of a sudden the numbers start going up, and I'm sending out emails. It's like, we're about to break the old record. Oh, we broke the old record, 50,000, 60, 70. And as part of this, I keep saying, and everything's fine. The service is running fine. There's no problems. And this goes on. We break that first night, just a couple hours after launch. We're already over 125,000 people playing at once. And they're basically all playing Halo 2.
Normal people hadn't gone up to go to work yet.
Yes. This was about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning Pacific time. And I sent out an email saying, hey, there's still about 120,000 people on. Been here all night. I'm going to go home and go to bed. Everything's just fine. Before I could shut my laptop down, I get a mail from Jay, who's online at home, going, okay, no, really, what's wrong? And he just didn't believe that it was running that smoothly. The next night, when everyone had had a chance to get their copy and get it home, we had basically quadrupled the old high of 43,000 users. And we landed somewhere in between the 125,000 and $250,000 projection. If we hadn't gone with the big $639,000 deal, Live would have never survived the first 12 hours of Halo. We kind of got lucky.
How long would it have taken if Live fell over? If you'd gone with something else other than the big one, and if Live had fallen over, how long would it have taken you to get it, to kick it and make it go again?
Back then, it would have been a long time. It was, I mean, the team was so small.
Yeah.
We were, Xbox and Live was 50 people at the time doing everything.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I wasn't at the launch party either because most of the product team was on call or in the office waiting for things to go bad. But yeah,
very
it was. If you remember
optimistic.
back in those days, every time we did an update, we took the service down for
A day
or longer. Sometimes
I forgot about that.
Don't
Well, and just put it in context.
remember that.
Just put the equipment in context, right? I mean, if we didn't order enough equipment and we had to reorder this equipment, like sand clusters, like there were hundreds of these in the world, right? That weren't like sitting on the shelf at the store.
Right.
So if you had to order one of these, it would take weeks and weeks and
Yeah,
weeks. to
he's
actually
not
get them.
calling Newegg.
No, you're not calling Newegg,
there
which
were-
was still Egghead then, right?
There were times for some of this gear when we would call and say, "Hey, we need you to build. We need to buy a blank," and they'd go, "Okay, we're gonna have to manufacture that." And so you had to get it right, and we honestly did get a little lucky.
That's a really good story. I had never heard it before when I pinged these guys about, do you guys have any old stories from Xbox One? And also, I don't think we've mentioned this, but E has the very first gamer tag ever in the history of gamer tags.
Yeah, and I also I'm
I have number
victim
5.
of one of the best Halo bugs ever, and actually in Halo 2. So I think you all know when you play Halo, you look at someone, after a second or so, their gamer tag pops over their head. There was a bug in Halo 2 where if your gamer tag was 3 characters or shorter, not only was there no delay, but it was always visible even through walls.
You could always find him on the map. It was great.
You could playing
awesome.
Headlong. Yeah, Headlong was a great CTF and assault map. But
Truly,
you could
this
see
is
me
just E
all the way
saying
across the
he's
map.
bad.
You could hold the sniper rifle on me as I was going behind the building, wait for me to come out, bam.
I remember that. That was fun.
Yeah, Bungie wouldn't fix that. They fixed it in Halo 3. It never got fixed for Halo 2.
That's awesome.
So how did the first guy who got a gamer tag get E? Shouldn't you have gotten A?
Well,
No. So
Eric,
E.
So we all sat. Well, let's see. It was Kilgore, me, Mimi, you. I think we all sat in like one office,
Lit.
whether it was mine or yours or.
I've actually got a photo of the creation of the original gamer tag. There were 4 people in the office when
Yeah.
we did it. And we had been building live for a couple of months, and we'd had some internal tests, and we finally said, hey, we're ready. We're going to wipe all the test data out. Okay, let's go. There's 4 people in the room, and I kind of said, get out of the way. Sat down. But back then, no keyboard. There wasn't a chat pad. You couldn't plug a USB keyboard in. You had to go through everything with the virtual keyboard on the controller. Took a few minutes to create the first gamer tag.
Not only do you have the first gamer tag, but if I remember correctly, you also have you're the very first person to lose a game on Xbox Live, right?
No, first to win.
I thought
I
it was
won the
lose.
first. No, Lockhart lost.
See,
the
do
first
you
game.
see where the memory gets fuzzy? Do you see the line? Do you see what happens?
I have proof that I won the
Okay,
first game.
I knew you were involved with some part of that story.
This is when Photoshop was created.
So we've talked a little bit about how Halo shaped Live and how Live shaped Halo, and we expect this to continue going on into the future. I would love for Jerry and Doug and the guys to talk a little bit about that, how we expect to see Halo and Live living together hand in hand.
So I work for this young gentleman right here. Right now on Halo Services, the
Young?
back end. Go ahead.
No, I just said young.
Young, yeah. Score points while you can. But the main thing that we're trying to do is we are trying to get back to our roots a little bit, get a lot more tied into the Xbox platform, and help drive new game experiences that are directly influencing platform, but impacting Halo as a title itself. Very, very similar to what we described for Halo 2. We've moved away from that a lot on the Microsoft side, and we're trying to change that moving forward. Primarily because all of you guys are here, right? It's all about the fans. It's about creating the great experiences that you guys love. And the best way to do that is to help make sure that no matter where you're at in your experience on Xbox, you're able to have the best time possible getting to your content.
Yeah, sort of as I think you're all aware that there's a transition that's taken place. 343 is assuming the mantle of driving Halo forward. We take that really seriously. It's been a great 10 years leading up to this point. And we look for another great 10 years going forward. So what does that mean? I mean, there's a small little thing in a year that's going to come out. I think they call it Halo
There's another number after that, 4 or something?
It's like, what, 3, then 4?
Yeah, 4.
I think it's 4. And some of the conversations that you just heard E talk about, fast forward it, add a couple of orders of magnitude, and have the same conversation all over again. So one of the things that my team does, and as Jerry said, he's the key guy in driving a lot of this. After having spent 10 years in live, he's come over to Halo to really move our back-end service forward. On August 2nd, we took over the full daily operation maintenance of the Halo back-end. And we're going through some major transitions right now as we modernize that back end, move it forward, and get it ready for the future. So a big part of that is working closely together with E and his team and Live about what are the things that we need to do together to drive forward multiplayer gaming. The thing about Halo that's so exciting is that it is the place where innovation takes place in multiplayer gaming. And I think you'll see a bunch of really fun stuff. This fall, Halo Waypoint and Anniversary are working together and doing some really cool things. So pay attention to some of that. We announced some things about that at the Halo panel on Friday. That's exciting. If you didn't see that, go and watch it on IGN. But then going forward through the year and into the next year, I think you'll see some more really cool things from Halo, the franchise, and as we start really moving to a very broad scope transmedia platform for storytelling, because this is such a great and rich franchise with such fabulous fiction. The game is just one piece of it, right? But it's a super important, critical part of it, and we take that super seriously.
Yeah, and so the big thing for you guys for sure is that we do listen on the forums. Allison actually helps run our community side, and just realize that as you're pushing for great things in Halo, hopefully, right, our goal is to hopefully that can help transcend past into the Xbox platform as well. But you'll get fantastic Halo. We're always on the forums. I think Jessica and all the various panels that have been throughout this weekend, we take very seriously what you guys are looking for, what you want, what drives you guys, what gives you guys energy. We want to make you guys happy. That's the bottom line.
We have time for like 2 questions. I saw you, I think it's an Adidas jacket first. Holler, because we don't have a mic up set up, sorry.
Awesome.
So the question was, I'll take this one. The question was, what's the next dashboard update coming? We announced some of the new features at E3. We haven't announced timing yet, but I will certainly be the first to tell you when it happens. I can't tell you a date because we don't have it ready yet, but when we do, you'll be the first to know. MajorNelson.com or follow me at Major Nelson.
Xbox Bing Halo.
Yes, that's right. Thank you, E.
And now for our next commercial announcement.
How about you? Holler, and make sure to repeat the question.
So the question was, during the Halo Reach beta, people were trying to get in, they couldn't. What were the problems? That's what a beta is for. It honestly, I don't think as an industry we do a very good job of setting people's expectations. That the whole point of having the beta is it's not a marketing stunt. We want to work the kinks out so that when you buy the game, it's just as smooth as can be. And I was over at Bungie when Reach launched, and we were working on things together, and in the first 24, 48 hours, we found a ton of great things, and it was wonderful that we found them then and not in November. I know as an end user, you want to play, it's the first day, you're excited, totally get that, but finding them then was really important, and we did that.
So thank you for your help.
Yeah, scale testing is extremely hard when you internally, right? So you have to open up a beta to really get the numbers into some range that you're not normally used to getting. The other thing is that the reality of where we test and how we test, it's very clean. The reality is that when real gamers get on real Xboxes in real houses, it's not clean at all. There's lots of problems, lots more hops, lots of other things.
Not that your house isn't clean, that the networks aren't clean. That's what he was referring to.
Well, your house is dirty.
That's your interpretation.
Sure.
But so it's hugely helpful for us, but it is a beta, right? And beta is suggested that it not necessarily a full functioning experience like you'd expect from a retail product.
Last question from this gentleman. What is the question was, what is the story behind your gamer tags?
I'll start. Mine is fairly well known. When I got the job at Xbox, I came home. My TiVo had recommended I Dream of Jeannie, and the lead character is Major Nelson.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, seriously, I'd never heard that story before.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, if you listen to our podcast,
Podcasts?
Yeah. What?
Don't worry, we're still educating Doug on technology that we're working on. Mine is Tick. It actually came from, there's a certain jawline that I've got going on here, as well as my previous team used to draw tons of pictures of me as the Tick.
Spoon!
So, yes.
This is really
So
good
it's
to
stuck.
know. We have artists.
Yes. Thank you, Allison.
I have the TV series on DVD if you need reference.
Yes.
Mine's Doughboy. My email address, I've been at Microsoft for over 20 years now. In the early days of Microsoft, your email address was your first name and your last initial. My name is Doug Hiebenthal, Doug H, Doe. Doughboy was logical for me to pick. The funny story about my gamer tag was that I was actually a little lazy when we went public, not public, but we went to the beta, and didn't get Doughboy right up front like I could have. And somebody in Germany actually got it. And so I had to go to our privacy group and say, I kind of screwed up and I didn't get the gamer tag that I should get. And they're like, well, it's beta, and I guess so we can offer this. So we offered the guy in Germany 2 additional beta enlistments for the very, very first live beta, which of course was like offering someone gold. And so he graciously gave up the gamer tag in order to get those 2 betas. And then the very next time that lawyer called me, I had to talk to a lawyer about this whole thing, believe it or not. It was a true story. The very next time that lawyer called me on a totally different issue, I called her. She answered the phone and said, yes, Doughboy. Okay, point taken.
I mean, mine's easy. It's E for Eric. The problem I was having, though, when we were trying to figure out, those of us who were building live, were trying to figure out what would our gamer tags be, and I was drawing a complete blank. And kind of the default people were thinking of was, well, I'll take my name, and I thought, Eric, that's really boring for a gaming service.
Who has Eric? Do you know?
I don't.
Oh, okay.
I thought about grabbing
thank you.
E and Eric
Steve.
both, but
Right.
I felt bad. I didn't want to like stomp on or squat on the names, so I just grabbed E. And honestly, at the time, it was just because it wasn't Eric. We had no idea that people were going to think single-letter gamer tags were cool. So
Oh, they are.
Well, we haven't heard from Steptoe yet.
Try and do this.
do you want me to tell your story?
Well, it's partially my my name at Microsoft, as was mentioned a minute ago. They combine your name, and so mine was pronounceable as Steptoe, and that's just part of Stephen, and then the first 2 letters of Toulouse. And so when I was a part of the multiplayer beta, we had a Microsoft employee internal only beta for a very short amount of time. And I think it was October of 2002.
Yeah, September, October.
So I just got my email name as my gamer tag, and that's where it came from.
In the early days of Microsoft, there wasn't friendly names on email. So you were your email name. So I was most commonly known inside of Microsoft as Doe, not Doug. And there were lots of people who had funny names. I worked with a woman named Catherine Hill. Her email name was Chill.
And then there was Joe Tayo, who was Jot.
Yeah, we can go on and on and on. But it became kind of part of the culture, and those of us who have been here a really long time, that sort of stuck with us for a long time.
So I actually have a quick question for the audience, Allison, if I can. Absolutely. Who's seen this photo before? So this was actually a bank here in not far from here in Redmond, Washington. They put this up for Halo 3, and I happened to drive past it. It was on my way from home to work, and I saw this, and hey, that's cool. And I got to work, and I sent an email to Jay and to my boss at the time saying, saw this thing, it was really cool, thought you'd be interested. got back an email from Jay. Well, if you really wanted to, do your job, you would have stopped and taken a picture. So at lunch, I drove back, got out of the car, took the picture.
Clearly a late lunch, by the way.
2:41 lunch.
Yeah. Took the picture and emailed it, and I honestly don't remember how it got on the internet because Twitter didn't exist back then, Facebook, but somehow it wound up on Kotaku with no attribution at all. I don't know where they got it from, but this picture is now everywhere. First Mutual Bank
You didn't make it with
doesn't
one of those generator websites?
No, but this bank doesn't exist anymore.
That's
so.
right.
Yeah, so your job is to find this bank.
All right, well, thanks, guys. We have to clear out. We're running a little bit late. I think maybe we'll stand over here. Some of us, those of us who can talk and don't have to run to another panel, we can sit and answer more questions if you like. Thank you very much for coming.
So hey, wait, we're last. Hey, Lisa is over there in the store.
Lisa?
There's some fantastic gear over there. Make sure you go check that out and say hi to Lisa. Okay?
Tell
Lisa.
Jerry. Tell her
Lisa,
Jerry
I have
sent you.
plushie. They're limited edition, only sold here.
That's right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.